right, guys, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. Happy almost birthday, America. It's July 3rd, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and locals. Subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And yes, America was established 249 years ago tomorrow. So ladles and jelly spoons, if you want to get this shirt or this hat or this hat or this hat or a whole bunch of other fun stuff, you can go to daverubin.store. Maybe this tumbler. We don't have these things for sale. I think I got these at Crate and Barrel or somewhere like that. And, you know, you can get a local flag too on your own, however you get your small flags. Thank you for tuning in. We will not be live tomorrow. However, we will have a quick July 4th video because I think it is worth celebrating this great freaking country. And today we've got a regular show for you, plus a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A, and then we are all off to celebrate America, do things with fireworks, and other such things. I think we all have our own plans, and we'll all convene here again on Monday. Okay, let's dive in. Actor Jason Bateman, and I was a little 50-50 on whether we were going to start with this clip because I kind of like Jason Bateman. Everyone kind of likes Jason Bateman. Nobody doesn't like Jason Bateman, right? Pretty good actor. He's been in a lot of great stuff over the last couple of years. What the hell was the show that I liked on Netflix? Secession? No, Ozark. Thank you. He was in Ozark. Like the guy's, there's something about the guy. He seems like a good guy. He's like everyman kind of. He went on Nicole Wallace from MSNBC, who I'm pretty sure is snorting Ozempic. Apparently she's got a podcast too because there's more podcasts than people. And he went on her podcast to bash Trump supporters. And I thought the only reason we're going to do this clip, because I know it doesn't really matter what celebrities say, but I thought there's something about it being right before July 4th, that there's still this set of people, despite all of the cultural changes that have happened in this country, that still don't get it and still think that they have to teach more than half of the country how to be, and that we're still the bad guys and everything else. And I just thought it was sort of disappointing, but an interesting, I guess, look at how they kind of still view us.
At what point, if ever, do you think the story would change from reporting on the outrageousness of Trump and his actions, his decisions, his words, and instead move to the people that have voted for him twice? And I know that goes back to the whole story of deplorables, and like as soon as that happened, everyone just backed off and don't ever talk bad about, you know, America and the 80 million. So, but he's never changed. Like, he's always been the same. He didn't do a 180 and dupe everybody when he got to the White House. It's the people that have put him there and then put him there again that really deserve a great deal of responsibility and a talking to. I'm sorry. And I say that with love. They are our neighbors, as I said before. And I know that they are, you know, deservedly aggrieved and whatnot, but there's another way to do it. There's somebody else in the Republican Party that can look after your issues. If it makes you sick to vote for a Democrat, great, vote for a Republican. Tons of my friends are Republican. Like, I have no issues with Republicans. It's this extra step that I think is so unnecessary to follow blindly.
So you can see why I wanted to show it to you, because there's still this confusion with a certain set of people. Like, I have no problem if you vote for Republicans, but just not that guy. Just not the guy that can actually win. Just not the guy that can actually change things. Just not the guy who's going against the entire system and proving that it's not infallible. Can't you just, if you voted for Mitt Romney, that would be better, or John McCain, that would be better, or just some mealy-mouthed nothing Republican that will end up as a co-host on MSNBC, that would be fine. So so he has Republican friends, but I guess the question would be, well, do you have any Trump supporter friends? And do they ever explain to you why they voted for Trump? And you're right, Donald Trump has never changed. You might want to give him credit for that. Donald Trump is not like the normal politician who says one thing and does another. Donald Trump has a 40-year track record of saying basically the exact same things on all of the big issues and now actually going through with them. I would also say, man, like, again, I don't hate you. Ozark, it was good. I just think this is so misguided that you could still be in Hollywood where you're supposed to be producing entertainment for everybody. Ozark was a great freaking show. But why? So why would you be on this political talk show to alienate half your fan base? Like, it's one of those things where these guys, they start becoming more and more political, and then it's all you can see. It's like the Hulk. What's his name? That horrible actor, the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo. It's like every time I see him now, it's like I don't see him as the Hulk or any of the other characters that he is. I just see him as that awful socialist buffoon. Like, these people become so overexposed, it starts ruining the art. You know, there's that age-old question, can you separate the art from the artist? And I think it's becoming harder and harder to. And I would also say, Bateman, don't worry about it, man. We checked, you're worth a cool $50 million. Like, you're probably saving a little money on top of yeah, maybe you're gonna have to pay a little bit more because the illegals you have doing your landscaping might have to be legal, but I think you're going to be basically doing okay with some of that tax money you're saving. Here's one more from the podcast.
Do you think Trump would have gotten the same number of votes if the people who voted for him had access to or the curiosity to seek out and find the truth? Because they're not getting the truth over on Fox. This $780 million lawsuit is proof of it, you know? So, and that was just one issue. So what do you do about that?
Nicole Wallace has a podcast called The Best People. Irony is dead. Bateman, again, like, okay, you may not like Fox News. Fox News is one channel. The machine has ABC and NBC and CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times and Washington Post, and we can do all of that thing. So you're upset that there's one kind of mainstream thing that is a counter narrative? Like, the idea, he says that these people don't have access to or curiosity to seek the truth. Well, I don't know, do they have a remote control? Do they have a button on their phone that might allow them to see other things? And sometimes people, maybe you're the one that's a little bit confused. I mean, it's the thing that you seem to be defending that has lied about everything from COVID to very fine people. I'm not going to do the list as I always do, but I will just show you a compilation of the things that Jason Bateman tunes into as they lie and lie and lie and lie. We could have done COVID. We could have done very fine people. In this case, the border.
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
The border is closed. The border is secure.
We agree that the border is secure.
It is my testimony that the border is secure, and we are working every day, day and night, to increase its security.
It would be wrong to think that the border is open. It is not open. And I just want to be very, very clear about that.
Very clear. Our borders are not open.
And when it comes to the border, we've taken action. We've taken action by getting record funding to do.
So those are your guys, man. Like, those are the Democrats who then use the news organizations that you seem to like more than Fox News to launder those lies. Now that we see that the border is closed and we know that 21 million came through in 4 years, like, Fox actually was the one mainstream network covering it. It doesn't mean that they're perfect when it comes to absolutely everything, but why is it you're not concerned with the lies the other way? This is a really good example of just get a mirror. And now I want to connect this to something else, because there was this really wacky story that people were talking about earlier in the week, how there is an app now available on the App Store, the Apple App Store, we just checked it out, that CNN was promoting on their network that literally helps people expose where ICE agents are. So you can tell people who are illegal, watch out, ICE agents are there. That seems like there's probably some legal issue there. I don't know exactly how it got into the App Store. It sounds like a whole bunch of problems, but now here's some more info on this app from CNN. Joshua Aaron has worked in and around the tech industry for around 2 decades. He built his first app, a blackjack game, at computer camp when he was 13. His newest app is designed for a very different purpose: to let users alert people nearby to sightings of immigration and customs enforcement agents in their area. ICEBlock currently has more than 20,000 users, many of whom are in Los Angeles, where controversial large-scale deportation efforts have taken place. ICEBlock is designed to be an early warning system for users when ICE is operating nearby, Aaron said. Users can add a pin on a map showing where they spotted agents, along with optional notes like what officers were wearing or what kind of car they were driving. Other users within a 5-mile radius will then receive a push alert notifying them of the sighting. So as I said, we just checked. It is in the App Store. It seems like there's multiple layers of legal issues here. Like, are you allowed to create an app that is an early warning system for law-abiding officers doing their jobs so that criminals, illegal aliens, can hide from them? Seems like there's some issues there. I suspect it seems that that would be against something in the iOS Apple Store terms of services, but it is there. And look, we can have a debate around the free speech as it pertains to all of that and all of those things. But I would say we can all see why there's something a little fishy there, because it's also like, okay, if you're warning people where they are you also maybe warning people where they could go find them and harm them, et cetera, et cetera? Anyway, this was being promoted by CNN, and Trump and Kristi Noem were asked about whether they would consider prosecuting people involved in promoting the app.
And Madam Secretary, CNN yesterday pushed an app that lets you track where ICE agents are. Tom Homan was saying that perhaps CNN should be prosecuted for that as obstruction of law enforcement. Your response?
Yeah, we're working with the Department of Justice to see if we can prosecute them for that, because what they're doing is actively encouraging people to avoid law enforcement activities, operations, and we're going to actually go after them and prosecute.
Yeah, so look, again, I don't know the exact legality around that, but if you are promoting people's ability to evade law enforcement doing their job that they're supposed to be doing, and then there could be some other bad stuff attached to that, well, they're going to have the DOJ look into it. And now it turns out that Attorney General Pam Bondi is going to have the DOJ looking into this guy, Joshua Aaron, the creator of ICEBlock himself.
Obviously, our ICE agents, all of our federal agents who are working hand in hand on these task forces, our federal agents from the Justice Department could be injured. He's giving a message to criminals where our federal officers are, and he cannot do that. And we are looking at it. We are looking at him, and he better watch out, because that's not a protected speech. That is threatening the lives of our law enforcement officers throughout this country. And shame on CNN. I just saw that for the first time when you showed it, that they're promoting that app. That's shame on them for doing that. That could hurt our law enforcement officers who are out there protecting them, protecting all of us every single day.
Look, so we'll see where this thing shakes out. But once again, I think it just illustrates the broader point, which is that CNN and most of mainstream media, the stuff that apparently a guy like Jason Bateman is watching, that it really is way more activism than it is journalism. It's one thing for the app to exist. Again, I don't know all the legality around that. I leave that to the DOJ and Pam Bondi, and okay, they can all fight that out. But for CNN to be promoting it to its audience, look, this new app, so a random new app came out. Okay, we have to promote it to our audience, and the reason they're promoting it, obviously, is it falls in line with their political views. If we flipped the script on this and there was something that the Trump people were doing to evade law enforcement, do you think CNN would be giving it glowing coverage? Like, as they say in the old country, come on. Here's some video from Fox describing what the level of violence that ICE officers are now dealing with and the way it has jumped.
It's an important one, Will. A scary jump in the number of attacks on ICE agents, as they, of course, have been ramping up enforcement efforts under President Trump. DHS telling Fox today that assaults are up nearly 700%. There were 10 assaults from January through June last year. This year, 79 assaults. And to think some Democrats are throwing a fit over agents using face coverings as they arrest criminal illegal immigrants. Some say immigrants, I say aliens. Go figure.
You see how a Fox News guy's even nervous to say illegal aliens. It's okay. They're illegal aliens. I don't care what you call them. They're illegal. Put whatever word you want after that. But again, the point is, why do these guys want their faces covered? Why do they maybe not want apps to be out there to track their movements? Because there's a whole bunch of bad people that now are the foot soldiers of the Democrat Party that can be activated. When these it's interesting, the protests. We have protests for weeks every day, then they stop for a while, then they start up for a while, then they stop. It's all coordinated. So would you want, if you were an ICE agent, would you want an app out there that would allow them to track you? Oh, and that you should be forced to take your mask off when then they can figure out where you live? Obviously not. Meanwhile, what is ICE up to? Well, they're arresting cannibals who occasionally are eating themselves.
And because those liberals, and I'm calling out you, CNN, I'm calling you out because you lie every single day about what these operations are. We are going after murderers and rapists and traffickers and drug dealers and getting them off the streets and getting them out of this country because Joe Biden let the worst of the worst come in here. The other day I was talking to some marshals that have been partnering with ICE. They said that they had detained a cannibal and put him on a plane to take him home. And while they had him in his seat, he started to eat himself. And they had to get him off and get him medical attention. These are the kind of deranged individuals that are on our streets in America that we're trying to target and get out of our country because they are so deranged they don't belong here. And they shouldn't be walking the streets with our children. And they shouldn't be living in.
All right, look, who am I to judge if you're just a run-of-the-mill cannibal? Okay, you eat a person every now and again. But if you are such a high-level cannibal that you're literally like, what time is it? Ooh, that wrist does look good. And then, like, that is commitment. That is, how did Trump even sit there without laughing through that or throwing in one of his comments or saying, but cannibals eating themselves on the plane, could we cut ICE a little slack here? By the way, you know, if you're eating a human, do you know what you're supposed to have with the human? Fava beans and a nice Chianti. Here's Tom Homan.
Like 300,000 missing children under the last administration. We're out looking for now because, again, we found thousands of them.
300,000.
Some of the children were we found with their family, perfectly safe. They just didn't respond to call-ins or they went and took off because they didn't want to face the consequences of immigration court. Well, we rescued some victims of sex trafficking. We rescued some victims on forced labor. We found children working on ranches and chicken farms, not going to school, but enslaved labor in the United States of America. So that was the whole nexus of the last administration.
And sex traffic to pedophiles?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We found some in sex trafficking. I mean, we just, I think 2 weeks ago, we rescued a 14-year-old that was already pregnant, living with adult men.
I mean, try to think of the level of stuff that we're finding out now. And it's sort of like what I always say with the algorithms. It's not the stuff I know they're doing. It's the stuff we don't know. Like a 14-year-old who was pregnant, living with a bunch of men, like obviously sex trafficking across the board, indentured servitude, kids working on farms, all these things. Why do the Democrats never care about any of these things? Why is it only, again, Jason Bateman, I would pose this question to you. Why is it you're never concerned about those things? Or the people that allow those things to happen, the people who open up the border to allow those things to happen. You're only upset, and broadly I mean this, the Jason Batemans of the world, you're only upset when we suddenly set up tents with alligators around them to get these people out. Then suddenly everything's bad, right? Like, just try a little harder. I think we can get you there, Bateman. I really do. One guy that we may not get there is, and we haven't talked about him in a while, is Alejandro Mayorkas, who, of course, was in charge of the border. And, well, he may end up in jail.
Why hasn't he been arrested yet? Obviously, you guys are cleaning up the mess that was made deliberately for the past 4 years. And so people want accountability. It's great to see that the border is secured, and it's great to see the state level cooperation. But I guess I would ask you, why hasn't he been held accountable, or anybody really?
Well, pardons were given out by to many people, and they shouldn't have been given out. Like the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs was given a pardon because they destroyed all of the information from 2 years of hearings, and they should be arrested, but they were given pardons. Was he given a pardon, Mayorkas? Was he not?
I don't believe so.
Well, I'd take a look at that one, because what he did is it's beyond incompetence. Something had to be done. Now, with that being said, he took orders from other people. And he was really doing the orders, and you could say he was very loyal to them, because it must have been very hard for him to stand up and sit up and, talk about what he allowed to happen to this country and be serious about it. So he was given orders. If he wasn't given a pardon, I could see looking at that. In fact, why don't you take a look at it, Kristi?
All right, so first off, that's just a great answer by Trump, because first off, he asked about the pardons, right? Because you can't prosecute somebody that was given a pardon. And we know the Biden administration, as most outgoing administrations do, they pardon all sorts of people, and it's all sorts of political favors and everything else. Biden's happen to all be done by AutoPen, except Hunter Biden, which sort of makes you think, I don't know, a little conspiracy around that. He had to do one himself because maybe they are going to break the story on the AutoPen. But okay, if there was no pardon as it pertains to Mayorkas, which I do think is right, it's interesting that Trump said, well, he was taking orders from people, because that is right. Does it all end up on the foot at the desk, basically, of Alejandro Mayorkas. Like, he was horrible at his job. It all happened under his watch. We played a million clips over the last couple of years of all the times he went on the show saying it's not happening, or maybe it is happening a little, or we're working on it, and blah, 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 blah. But he was taking orders. Now, the thing is that taking orders is not an excuse, because that was the excuse that the Nazis used. Do you know that during the Nuremberg trials, all of the Nazi officers and officials and lieutenants and everybody, well, they always said, I was just taking orders. And at some point, that does not count as an answer. So look, I don't know that anyone ends up in jail for all these things. It's sort of like Fauci. Like, there are people that have done terrible, terrible things that intentionally abused power or were horrifically negligent or some combination thereof. My guess is Mayorkas doesn't end up in jail, but he should be embarrassed to show himself in public going forward. One guy who shouldn't be embarrassed to show himself going forward is Stephen Miller, who's just doing a bang-up job, I would say, explaining things on a legal front for the Trump administration. Here he is talking about how they have basically got illegal entries to zero, something that Mr. Mayorkas did not do.
When President Trump came into office on January 20th, the United States had endured the largest wave of illegal immigration in human history. Not just American history, human history. And within just a few days, President Trump, through his strength, leadership, diplomacy, and vision, achieved the most secure border anyone in the world has ever seen. When we recently went overseas to the NATO summit, I had senior staff in foreign governments come up to me and ask me how he achieved the Trump miracle on his border, and could that be replicated in their countries. For individuals who don't work in this space, to have 0 successful illegal entries in an entire month should be an impossible achievement. There's a 2,000-mile border with one of the poorest countries in the world, and you have open travel from 150 countries into Central America and South America. There are 2 billion people in the world that would economically benefit from illegally coming to the United States. And through the deployment of the military, through the deployment of novel legal and diplomatic tools, through the building of physical infrastructure, through the empowering of ICE and Border Patrol, and the entire federal law enforcement apparatus, President Trump achieved absolute border security. And now, once this legislation is passed, he will be able to make that with those resources permanent.
In short, he said decline is a choice, and Trump chose not to decline anymore. They didn't need anything. They didn't need executive actions. They didn't need a bipartisan bill. They needed absolutely nothing to close the border. They did this intentionally. Did Joe Biden even know? We may never know the answer to that. But then Trump came in and fixed it real quick. We, in essence, right now, are getting no illegal border crossings. It's not only because we've put protection at the border, but the signal. That's actually the bigger part. The signal went out to the world. Don't come. Sorry, don't come. I'm gonna come. Don't come. Okay, that's it. And that thus people don't come. And now GoldCo. Guys, did you know that Florida just legalized gold and silver as money? Yeah, that's right. The free state of Florida, my home state, recognizes gold and silver now as legal tender. Governor DeSantis put it best. This is about giving you the financial freedom to protect yourself against the declining dollar. With inflation, national debt soaring, and even U.S. credit downgrade, it's no wonder people are waking up. That's why I've partnered with GoldCo, a top-tier precious metals company I trust. Want to protect your savings? Visit DaveLikesGold.com to get your free 2025 gold and silver kit. Once again, that's DaveLikesGold.com. From all of that to a bad day for chicks with dicks. Listen to this from Fox News. The U.S. Department of Education announced Tuesday that the University of Pennsylvania has agreed to a resolution with President Donald Trump's administration to keep biological male trans athletes out of women's sports in a statement provided to Fox News Digital. The department previously launched an investigation into UPenn on February 6 for Title IX violations that occurred in the swimming program. Trans athlete Leah Thomas competed for the women's team in the 21-22 2022 season after previously competing for the men's team. Per the DOE's announcement, under UPenn's new agreement, the following actions will be taken. UPenn will restore to female athletes all individual UPenn Division I swimming records, titles, or similar recognitions which were misappropriated by male athletes allowed to compete in female categories. UPenn will issue a public statement to the university community stating that it will comply with Title IX, specifying that UPenn will not allow males to compete in female athletic programs or occupy Penn Athletics female intimate facilities. The statement will specify that UPenn will adopt biology-based definitions for the words male and female pursuant to Title IX and consistent with President Trump's executive orders defending women from gender ideology extremism and keeping men out of women's sports. UPenn will post the statement in a prominent location on its main website and on each of its websites for women's athletics. UPenn will rescind any guidance which violated Title IX, remove or revise any internal and public-facing statements or documents that are inconsistent with Title IX, and notify all staff and women's athletics of all such rescissions. And UPenn will send a personalized letter of apology to each impacted female swimmer. UPenn also released a statement acknowledging the agreement and suggested changes to its swimming records will be made. Okay, so look, this is obvious. It is good, it is just, it is right. If you are for women, you should not want men competing with them. No one cares what you do as an adult, if you want to dress a certain way or do whatever the high hell you want to do with your body, but it shouldn't come at the cost of young women athletes. Title IX was put in so that women would have access to sports so that they could compete in their own facilities and in a way that was equitable to them so they weren't getting crushed by guys. And then this guy, Leah Thomas, comes in, and Leah Thomas, we still believe, I don't know this for a fact, but several people, this is what it says online, he still has a wang. So he has a wang, which, as you know, it's the Connor theory, he was using as a propeller to speed past these chicks. And one of the ladies that he beat is a spectacular young woman who I know a little bit, Riley Gaines, and here she is on Fox News talking about her vindication.
Your reaction tonight, historic news from UPenn.
Man, I watched that video back, Laura, that you showed in the intro to this segment, and I cannot even believe that happened. All the while, so many sat idly by and watched and actually reprimanded us as women if we even dared to speak about this. To say that I, of course, am grateful for Secretary McMahon, for President Trump, for even Attorney General Bondi, she's been fantastic at the Department of Justice on this issue, is an understatement. I feel vindicated. I feel like pigs are flying. I feel like hell has frozen over. So it is a fantastic day, of course, for sanity, for common sense, but I think more broadly for women, for humanity, for the little girl that I'm growing inside of me right now that I will welcome to the world in just a few weeks. I think of her. I think of her future. That is what Donald Trump and, of course, Secretary McMahon and myself, that is what we are fighting for. So very, very excited about today's news.
Yeah, look, I don't need to reiterate that because she said it quite well, but I think the key part is what she said at the front, which is that she can't even believe that's what happened. And I think that's what, if we beat the woke thing, if society actually heals itself over time and all that, we'll all look back on it like, man, that was a pretty freaking bananas period of time, and who participated in that lunacy. And of course, as you know, all the people who did participate in it will pretend they had nothing to do with it. That would be like Jake Tapper writing a book about Biden's mental state while he was covering it up. Same general notion there, right? The people who had everything to do with wokeness will be like, oh, I didn't know. I don't know. But no, you guys can't get away with this. And we all should have known it was ridiculous all along. Here's the dude with the propeller penis, Leah Thomas, on a podcast 2 years ago, explaining that this was all, the pushback was all because people are transphobic.
They're like, oh, we respect Leah as a woman, as a trans woman, whatever. We respect her identity. We just don't think it's fair. You can't really have that sort of half support where you're like, oh, I respect her as a woman here, but not here. They're using the guise of feminism to sort of push transphobic beliefs. And I think a lot of people in that camp sort of carry an implicit bias against trans people, but don't want to, I guess, fully manifest or speak that out. And so they try to just play it off as this sort of half support.
They think about how twisted feminism, quote unquote, feminism has become. Their arguments, in order to exclude anybody in the trans category, you have to reduce women to reproductive capacity, which is, in my opinion, extremely anti-feminist. I don't want to put those women down either, and I know you don't want to either, because I see pain. I see pain, and the pain is coming from somewhere. It's not you, though. It's the patriarchy. And how can we get people to see that?
There's nothing more feminist than two dudes explaining to chicks what feminism is. I don't even consider myself a feminist, but I'm for women having equal rights and not having the shit kicked out of them. Where's my award? The other guy's name is Schuler Baylor. Who cares? Why'd you give me that information? I don't care. He's not going anywhere. Or is he a chick? He's probably a chick too? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Anyway, just to show you how off the rails this whole thing went. And again, the world is healing. That's the point of all this, is that nature is healing right now. Here is former Congresswoman and Senate candidate Vicky Hartzler's ad from 2022 about Leah Thomas, because somehow this got to the point that Congress people had to comment on genitals in female sports.
Meet William Thomas, ranked number 462 in men's swimming. Meet Leah Thomas, ranked number 1 in women's swimming. Only one problem. It's the same person. Some people are afraid to talk about it. Not me. I'm Vicky Hartzler. I ran and coached girls track, and I won't look away while woke liberals destroy women's sports. Women's sports are for women, not men pretending to be women.
Now, incredibly, she did not win. Vicky did not win, so she is not the Congresswoman. And putting that aside for a moment, it goes back to what I was just saying. Like, we will look back on things like that. We're going to show our kids are going to see that on YouTube of the future in the metaverse. They're going to see some ad the way we see. I like all those throwback things from like the 80s. I see like cartoons and commercials from when I was a kid. Kids are going to see that. They're like, Mommy, Daddy, is that true? Or Mommy, Robot, or whatever, Anyway, check this out from Mazemore on Twitter. In 2022, former Congresswoman and Senate candidate Vicky Hartzler ran this ad and then posted women's sports are for women, not for men pretending to be women. She was then immediately suspended from Twitter for hateful conduct. Thankfully, we are moving past that insanity. You know what? I don't know where she is these days, but she put her on the list of people that I want to buy dinner. But the good news is not just happening at University of Pennsylvania. Listen to this from Eric Daughtry. Huge news. Stanford Medicine has now terminated its transgender surgeries for children following pressure from President Trump's administration. They are the second major California provider making this move. The children are being saved. Wins like this are monumental. So again, my position, whatever the high hell you want to do as an adult, if you treat me with respect, I might even use the gender pronouns you prefer. Like, I can work all that through in an adult conversation and everything else. But I will not lie about biology, and I certainly will not pretend that just because a 5-year-old who's been brainwashed thinks they are something, and then you allow, as Jordan Peterson calls them, these butchers to come in and basically ruin these young people's lives. And now we know there's this huge detransition movement. And again, this is the earth healing. Let's talk about 1775 coffee for a moment, and then a Rubin Report, .locals.com community Q&A. What if your coffee didn't just wake you up, but actually made you feel sharp, focused, and ready for the day? This is what sets 1775's Peaberry coffee apart. These rare beans, grown high in the Bolivian mountains, are hand-picked at peak ripeness. They deliver smooth, concentrated flavor with no acidity, no jitters, and no crash. Try it now. Go to 1775coffee.com/Rubin and use code Rubin for 15% off. It's coffee that earns its place in your morning. B.B. Gillison says, why is no one talking about the Republican candidate for New York City Mayor, Curtis Sliwa? So, Curtis Sliwa, for those of you that are from New York of a certain age, wise old age of 49 like I am, you may remember Curtis Sliwa. Curtis Sliwa was part of the Guardian Angels, and we used to see him on WPIX Channel 11 all the time. And basically, we did a little checking on it. I wanted to get it right. The Guardian Angels started. It was a volunteer organization. They wore their kind of bright red jackets. It started in around 1979, and they would go on the subway, and they would just make sure that things were safe. When New York City was bad, this was pre-Giuliani, they were vital in keeping the streets and the subways safe for other people. Curtis Sliwa has been on the radio for years there in New York, and he's like a true New Yorker. You listen to the guy talk, he sounds like a New Yorker. I think the reason people aren't talking about him that much, and I think we're going to get him on the show. He just followed me on Twitter, so I'm going to send him a message. The reason people aren't talking that much is because it is very, very difficult, if not impossible at this point, for a Republican to win. So the question is, if Mondami is bad, let's say all of you watching this agree that he's basically bad, but the Democrats have the base of the city. Well, then if Eric Adams is against him, and now Sliwa's there too, Eric Adams is going to run as an independent, Sliwa's there too, and maybe there'll be a couple other little names that get involved. You gotta basically bring all those people together to stop Mondami. So the question is, how much attention? I think a lot of people in the media are sort of bouncing around this notion, like, what do you do with a guy like Sliwa? Decent, he's a good guy by all estimation. He cares about New York City, probably right on most of the issues. But if he can't get there because he's a Republican, then do we just have to back Eric Adams, the guy who ushered in so much of this nonsense, who's just pretty terrible himself, but he's not a completely psychotic jihadist communist? New York City will have to figure it out. AK Glacier Girl says, did you explore other parts of New York State? If so, any favorite areas? Well, I went to college upstate New York, SUNY Binghamton. Went to the big Syracuse Carousel Mall, one of the biggest malls in the country. I mean, most of my life, I grew up in Long Island. I was born in Brooklyn, grew up in Long Island, lived in New York City most of my life. So it was mostly in that New York City metropolitan area. Had a lot of family in Jersey too. We went up to Buffalo. My brother went to SUNY Buffalo. They got the big waterfall over there. And I like Florida. It's pretty good. I like the Gators, Alcatrazes, that kind of thing. Casey Ferrier says, maybe it's time to make a change and put an age limit on judges. Is there still a reason why you think judges should be appointed for life? Look, it's an interesting question. The original idea, of course, was that you want this branch of government not to be subjected to the whims of the people, not to be subjected to having to, be elected every 2, 4, 6 years, whatever it might be, because then they can be hopefully faithful purely to the Constitution of the United States and not to the political or cultural machinations of the day. So I understand the original idea there. Is there an issue now that we are getting people, and we see this, putting aside judges for a second, I mean, we've seen this with the, 80-plus set of people, 80-year-old plus set of people that have been running the country for so long, that at some point you shouldn't be allowed to be in public office. Yeah, probably. Like, I don't like the idea of an arbitrary number, right? Because, one of the things, every time we would expose Biden, people would be like, oh, you're going after him because of his age. And it's like, no, it wasn't because of his age. I literally know 90-year-olds that are in great shape. I interviewed Frankie Valli not too long ago, who's still putting on 3-4-hour concerts at 91 years old, right? Joe Biden at 82 or whatever could barely get through a sentence. So it wasn't about age, it was about cognitive ability. So I don't like just associating an age with the cutoff point. But should there be more transparency? Let's do it this way. Should there be more transparency as it relates to cognitive ability, to other physical modalities that they should have to prove that they're somewhat able to accomplish, like something like that? Probably. And I think the world is also going in that direction more, because as technology evolves, as we all have phones and all these things, you can't hide the things like you used to. You take Biden, all the stumbles and the gaffes and everything else, that they would have been able to hide it a lot better 20 years ago, pre-internet. Now it's all here, it's right in front of our face. So that in some sense offers an automatic correction because they know they can't get away with as much. But the arbitrary number, I'm not totally on board. Kul Ora says, how does one go about publishing a book? Does an aspiring author already need to have some work prepared for an editor? What is entailed in the process? Well, I can tell you about my process, which was that the first time I had sort of wanted to write a book for a while, and I was on tour with Jordan, and Jordan at the time, it was the 12 Rules for Life tour. Jordan was already working on the second book, and I started, through talking to Jordan, I started sketching out the idea for a book, and I called my agent and I was like, listen, I'm kind of thinking about this. Could you maybe see what's what? And then a couple of weeks went by. I didn't hear anything from him. And then one day, I've told the story a couple of times, Jordan and I were about to go on stage. We were in Sweden, or I think we were in Finland, actually, if I'm not mistaken. No, we were in Oslo. Pretty sure we were in Oslo. And it was right before we were about to go on stage, and I got a call from my agent saying, hey, there's a lot of excitement here. We took this thing to auction, meaning they took it to a bunch of the big publishing houses and they all kind of bet on it. And here we go. And Penguin Random House was the winner. And would you be interested in this offer? And I took it and I was thrilled. And Jordan was so happy for me. And it was great. And so I had basically written out sort of a brief sketch. Now, at that point, I had a library of work behind me, so they kind of knew what they were getting. If you're a brand new author, I suspect you're asking this question because you want to write something. You got to write a full treatment. So when I wrote my second book, even though my first book did extremely, extremely well, then I wrote a full treatment, meaning I wrote basically the first chapter and I wrote the rest of the outline. For my third book right now, I don't think I'm going to go through the main channels. I'm probably going to self-publish it, and I've been sketching it out a little bit more, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. But I would say this is, in some sense, it's a kind of offshoot of the previous question because the world is changing fast. So if you want to go through the traditional channels, the old school world of publishing and publishing houses, it's very, very slow. Books are held, for basically a year and a half. So, to write something topical is almost impossible, which is also a weird thing about how quickly that Jake Tapper book got through the system. But you can self-publish now and you can immediately get it out to the people. And if you have a little bit of an audience, that might be the better way of doing it. There are advantages to having a publishing house with you where you're going to get an all-star editor. My editor, Helen, was amazing, and I loved working with her and going back and forth and arguing things out and cutting things and pushing them back in and all of that stuff. But you can find an editor that's independent as well. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it. But I wish you a lot of luck. And it's a labor of love. Like, you can only do it if you want to do it, because I knew I really wanted to do it. I knew I had to do it, sort of. And if you don't, you'll hate yourself during the process because it's a lot of work. There were days where I would start at 8 a.m. and I would go into my office and I would just have a cup of coffee, and then it would suddenly be 5 o'clock. And half the day I was writing, half the day I was basically staring at the wall trying to come up with something. And sometimes David wouldn't even open the door. He would literally just crack the door open and slide some food in just to make sure I ate something, because you're just so in the zone on it. So if you've got something to say, you should say it. Go ahead, do it. Send it to me. You're on Locals. Send me something. Let me take a look. Rob says, Dave, would you ever consider running for state or federal public office? Oh, lordy, lordy. Look, I've been asked this a lot over the years. There were a few people that wanted me to get involved more intimately in LA public stuff during COVID because that went so crazy and I was so against the lockdowns and all that. I've been approached by several people, high-level people here in Florida, to maybe get involved. Obviously, DeSantis is not going to be governor forever. I don't think so. I love what I'm doing, number one. That's number one. Number two, I think I'm affecting things, actually. Not only do I enjoy what I'm doing, but I think I'm affecting things and helping, hopefully, people see through some of the BS and get involved in their own way. And being a politician, is a constant battle for, it's a constant battle for your integrity or something that I don't know that I would want to do. My life is good. I want to be able to spend as much time with the kids as possible while I still build all of these things. We've also got, several new businesses on the way. We started another new production company that we're doing Actual Friends through. We started a tequila thing. So I'm just doing a lot of things, but to affect politics, I think I can affect it more from this side. But I would also say never. You never know. Rumble Premium real quick, and then a couple more questions. Free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We've always believed in empowering voices, no matter how unpopular, and now we're taking that fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their backs. But we're not here to fit a mold. We're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russell Brand, Dr. Disrespect, Timcast, and the Mug Club with Crowder. It's more than a subscription. It's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off the annual plan using promo code Rubin. Visit rumble.com/premium/Rubin and claim your discount today. Whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching, your support helps keep free speech alive. Mitch says, I'm going to be on Long Island next week. Any favorite restaurants you recommend? There's probably only one restaurant on all of Long Island I can recommend because it's the same one from my childhood. If you want to eat pizza at the very same place that Dave Rubin has been eating pizza since he was 4 years old, go to Mario's Pizzeria on Jericho Turnpike, the very place that I was riding my bike to for all my years. When I was going there, literally 1980, 81, they had the original Miss Pac-Man in there. That's how old it was. Old school. It was a little, they probably had 8 tables. It was just like an alleyway like this, the old school, red and white checkered Italian tablecloths, and pizza was probably 75 cents. And if we'd get a couple sodas, we could maybe get a quarter. You could give them the cans back. You'd get a quarter. We could play a little Pac-Man. I think later on, what else did they have? There was something with a ninja. I don't remember what game that was. But they expanded over the years. They took like 2 or 3 more restaurants that were right on either side of them, and they've been going strong forever. And the pizza that is the one thing when I go home, like, man, I want a slice of Mario's pizza. So if you make it, Jericho Turnpike, Mario's Pizza. Tappy Chef says, any super fun plans for July 4th? Are the boys into fireworks, or does Clyde cower? Well, Clyde goes bananas with fireworks. So we're going to give him, you can give him some treats to calm down, but they barely work. And we're not too far from the water here, so there's just an endless amount of fireworks, and Clyde's just going to have a rough couple hours. What are you going to do? He's also in the cone at the moment. He had a little thing removed, so it's going to be a tough couple hours for Clyde. The kids love fireworks, absolutely love fireworks. They've only seen them a couple times, but they love like clouds and planes and helicopters and all of that stuff. So I'm not exactly sure what we're doing. I mean, we're gonna have some pool time this weekend, and we'll do some barbecuing. It's hot here right now, so you got to figure out some things that aren't outdoors. Probably do something with my sister and some of her kids, and just celebrate this the greatest country in the history of the world. Mark says, what does Dave of 2025 tell the Dave that was hawking tickets to his own shows on the streets of New York? Oh, man. I mean, I guess Dave of 2025 would tell that guy, listen, it's going to be okay. Because there were a lot of days out there where for hours we used to bark. That's what we called it. You'd stand outside for an hour before a show handing out tickets. I did it 6 days a week. 2 hours a night for 2 different shows, so an hour a night per show for years and years. And we did it no matter the weather. It did not matter. Snowstorm, burning hot, we'd be out there. It just did not matter. And we would do it. And you'd often, for the show itself, you'd make no money. Maybe you'd get a beer if the club was being nice. Eventually, I opened a couple of clubs myself. I guess I had that industrious thing, and a few comics, and I opened some things, and we started making a little scratch, which was great, and we would get more time on stage. But a lot of it just sucked, and it really sucked back then. I would have to put on 2 pairs of socks and double pants to go do stand-up because it was so cold out there. I remember one time I was standing on 51st and Broadway in the middle of the craziest snowstorm. And I had an old, this was early on with cell phones. I had an old candy bar, Nokia. I think they called it a candy bar, like black and white. You could play Snake on that thing. Old phone. And I remember my phone rang, and I gloves, and it's hard to even pick up the phone. And it's my roommate, Mike. And he goes, Dave, turn around. I was like, what? He goes, turn around. You're on the news right now because they're doing a report from Times Square saying that nobody should be outside and everything's closing. And I see you out there standing there with the tickets, because that was the corner that I stood on with the tickets. Like, that's what we used to do. We'd perform in front of 3-4 people, sometimes broken AC and things, dripping with sweat. So what would I tell that guy? I would say it all worked out. It all worked out. Like, it was worth it, I guess, is what I was telling him. And the funny thing is, I look back on them now. When I go, I usually only go back to New York City to do Gutfeld, and the Fox studio is just 2 or 3 blocks from where I used to hang out all the time and where I'd be handing these tickets out. And I walk there all the time, and I'll sometimes just stand on that corner that I used to stand. I usually post a picture in Locals. And to me, it's like the good old days, which that really tells you something about life. I guess if you do it right, you aim at something, and if you kind of get towards that thing, you'll be able to look at the struggle and be like, oh, that was the good old days. That was the good old days when me and Bob, we had $5 between the two of us at the end of every night, and we'd split a turkey sandwich at the dumpiest deli ever. But it's somehow that's the good old days. Life's weird, I guess, is what I would say. Final question. Christine says, what will the team do in August? Well, I'll have a little bit more about my August adventure as we get closer. And we're doing something super cool this year related to the show, which I kind of hinted. I'll give you a little more hint right now, but it is AI related. And August is going to be like no other August we've ever done. That's one thing. Show related. Anyone want to say what they're... Well, Phoenix is going to Los Angeles. Freak. What are you... And Joseph's going to Los Angeles? Connor, please tell me you're doing something. You got to go some Arizona, Colorado. That sounds all right. Joey's going to Greece. That's pretty good. Kristi, you going anywhere in August? Where? She's going to Miami Beach. I give you all a month. A month, people. Go do something, for God's sakes. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have an absolutely wonderful July 4th. Happy birthday, America. And we're going to put up a quick little July 4th video for you tomorrow. No big show, and we'll be back on Monday. Ciao.